Shalom, friends of Israel. I am Saul Isabram, National President of Jewish National Fund USA. Thank you for joining us for our daily briefing from Israel on the 20th day of this war. Today, we welcome Avi Mayer, the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. Avi was born in New York, raised in Jerusalem, and graduated from the University of Maryland. Prior to his role at the Jerusalem Post, he was the international spokesperson of the Jewish Agency for Israel. He was also the managing director of global communications at the American Jewish Committee. While Avi speaks to you, you're welcome to post questions in the chat, and time permitting, we'll try to get to a couple of those questions. Avi, thank you for being with us today. Please share your update with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in and for everything you do for Israel and for the relationship between the United States and Israel every day. I want to start off by just sharing a little bit about what it's been like to run a newspaper, an Israeli newspaper, during this period. I've been in this position for a little bit more than half a year, and I can't say that I signed up knowing that I'd have to deal with a war, and I probably would have signed up for this anyway, but I would say that this has been the most intense 3-week period of my life. And I know that's true of many of my colleagues and many of the journalists who work for me. The attacks of October the 7th caught us all by surprise. I was roused from bed by hearing the air raid siren at my home in Jerusalem. And none of us really understood what was going on or what the magnitude of this event actually was until later that day and in the days that followed. But I knew that something was up. And so even though it's not my practice, I decided to turn on my phone on Shabbat. And I actually carried it with me as I went to Shabbat morning services, which are also holiday services for Simchat Torah at my synagogue in Jerusalem. And every few minutes, I would run out of the room or walk as discreetly as I could out of the room to follow up with my team, make sure that we were updating our website and our audience on rocket attacks, ensure they were being kept safe. And I remember that initially we heard that 22 people had been killed. And at the time, that seemed like an astronomical number. We couldn't believe that so many people had been murdered. And then steadily that number grew. First it was 22, then it went to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 250. And we just didn't know how to handle that. This is completely unprecedented, unparalleled in every way. And I got home from Shabbat morning services. I should also note that during the services, there were several rocket alerts and we had to run to the bomb shelter in our synagogue several times. And by the time I reached home, Shabbat was basically canceled. I jumped, I think, full force into the media coverage of the day, and that's really been continuing ever since. I think this has affected all Israelis in a variety of ways. I think first there's the shock, the horror of the greatest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Many families are in pain. Many are grieving loved ones who have been confirmed dead or in a state of complete anxiety, not knowing whether their loved ones are alive, being held somewhere in Gaza, or dead in a field somewhere in southern Israel. That is devastating. And there's so many families who are in that situation. There are hundreds of bodies that have already been collected that haven't been identified yet because they're in a state that simply can't be identified. They're now matching DNA samples to bodies to see if they can perhaps give families some sense of closure. Then, of course, there are the 360,000 reservists who have been mobilized and are at the border, including some members of my team. Several of our journalists have been mobilized, so our news team is simply diminished. We have families, couples here where one of the spouses is on reserve duty. We have colleagues whose children are on reserve duty. This is very much affecting all Israelis and certainly our newsroom as well. But what I'd say is perhaps one of the most striking ways that we have been affected by this is really the psychological toll. Many of our staff members are young. Many of them are immigrants, olim to Israel, and they don't have a support network here. And so if there's a rocket attack, that's something that they may never have encountered before. They're now running between their computers and their bomb shelters. Many of them are working from home. And this is a totally unfamiliar situation for them. I have one younger employee who has lost 7 friends so far in this conflict. And she's absolutely devastated. And so we've been making mental health resources available to our employees. The Union of Journalists in Israel has been making mental health resources available to all journalists in this country. And I know that several of my employees have availed themselves of those, but it's obviously been very, very difficult. I think the trauma of seeing some of this carnage firsthand has also taken a significant toll. I went down to Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the kibbutzim that was most severely affected by the massacre on October 7th last Monday. I wrote a column about it last Friday. I've never encountered anything like that before. The knowledge that this was a site of tremendous carnage, of murder on a scale that was totally unimaginable to me, reminded me, quite frankly, of a visit I had to Poland, where I was walking through sites of mass murder during the Holocaust. That was the only time I experienced feelings similar to those that I had at Kibbutz Be'eri. And I've mentioned this in several forums. The smell of death was so overpowering and completely pervasive throughout the site. But I felt that it was my duty to convey that reality through my writing, through media appearances I've done over the past few weeks. And that's been extremely challenging as well. And then I would say a parallel challenge that we've been encountering, perhaps even more than other media outlets, is an effort to simply take us offline. We've been under sustained cyber attacks since the launch of this war on October the 7th. They've succeeded in taking us offline on several occasions, including several blocks of a few hours. I think actually the day after this happened, on October the 8th, we were offline for a large part of the day because of this sustained cyber attack. There are clearly those who don't want Israel's story to get out to the world. We've been resisting that, of course. We've been upping our cyber defenses, working with various authorities to try and ensure that we stay online, working through social media when our website is unavailable. But it just highlights for us that this war of information is very real. And I think many of us saw it last week in that incident at the Gaza hospital, where so many media organizations were quick to blame Israel on the basis of information they received from Hamas, which of course blamed an Israeli airstrike and claimed that 500 people had been killed. Now we know that A, it wasn't an Israeli airstrike, and B, not 500 people were killed. But at that point, that narrative had been set. We were, of course, much more circumspect. We said, yes, there was an explosion at the hospital, and it happened concurrent to a barrage of rockets. And of course, it turned out that indeed it was a Palestinian rocket that fell short and killed some number of people. We don't know exactly how many. Estimates range from 10 to several dozen in that Gaza hospital parking lot, actually not the hospital itself. But that's just something that we deal with all the time. This web of disinformation, misinformation, skewed facts that we as a media organization feel it's our obligation to fight back against. And that's been obviously our role throughout the year, but it's been way more intense over the past few weeks. We don't know how long this conflict is likely to go on. We've been hearing different estimates. It depends largely on whether there will indeed be a ground campaign, which seems likely. The prime minister has said that it's going to happen. This could go on for weeks or even months. I've heard it could go well into next year. We'll be prepared. Our newsroom has adapted easily. We are always active. Doesn't matter whether there's war or not. Our website is online when we aren't being attacked. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 364 days a year, not on Yom Kippur. And that will continue to be true throughout this war. So we will continue to do whatever we need to do to get the word out to you, to our audience of millions around the world about what's actually happening on the ground in Israel. We view that as our sacred responsibility, our duty to you, and quite frankly, to the state of Israel, to make sure that we're telling the story in the most comprehensive way that we possibly can. And with that, I'm happy to take whatever questions you might have.
Okay, Avi, thanks. That was very informative, and thank you for what you do. One question is, any comment about today's Wall Street Journal report about weapons smuggled into the West Bank by Iran?
Well, we know that Iran has been playing a pernicious role in this conflict for many, many years. While Hezbollah is a fully owned subsidiary of Iran in Lebanon, Hamas is also a beneficiary of Iranian support in the form of funds, weapons, and now we know training. The Wall Street Journal had a report yesterday about how several hundred Hamas terrorists were trained in Iran in the weeks leading up to the October 7th massacre. And yes, we do know that Iran has played a role in the West Bank, not only through Hamas, but also through Islamic Jihad, which, similar to Hezbollah, is very closely aligned with Iran, also something of a fully owned subsidiary and with a very robust presence in the West Bank. Israel has acted against Islamic Jihad on several occasions, including in Jenin, which is a hub of their terrorist activity in the West Bank, and of course will continue to do so. But the notion that Iran isn't yet involved in the conflict, and we hear that a lot, right? Well, what happens when Iran enters the fray? Iran has been a part of this since well before this started. The Wall Street Journal reported just last week that it actually not only was aware of it and helped prepare for it, but actually gave the green light for this to happen. So the notion that it's not involved is preposterous. We know that Iran is very much in the thick of this and will likely continue to be for a very long time.
And the last question, we all have seen your thoughts and would like to hear your thoughts about the narrative of most international press that the Gazans are the victims. What can we do? At JNF USA, we have 400 or 500 people that watch this live a day, 2,000 that watch it, the replay later in the evening. So you have let's say a JNF army here of a few thousand people. What can we do to help promote the real story?
Look, every single voice matters. We're at a time where information has been so democratized, where people are not as reliant on traditional media, although perhaps those of us in the traditional media would prefer that they were, where anyone with a smartphone, anyone with an internet connection, anyone with an account on Instagram or Twitter, now known as X, or Facebook, or any other social network has tremendous power to shape perceptions and to shape a conversation. The Hebrew saying is, it's not your duty to complete the task, but you also are not free to desist from it. And I think we all have that responsibility to share the truth to whatever audiences we have that will listen, whether online or offline, in conversations with friends or colleagues. I think there are many who don't know what's going on here. The degree of ignorance is so profound. I just saw a poll that said that about a third of college-age Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 believe it is fake news that 1,400 people were murdered on October the 7th. A third. It's an unfathomable number. And yet they're getting their information from social media, and we have to be fighting back on those platforms. So I welcome you to follow us at the Jerusalem Post. You can follow me personally. I put out this information constantly, but there are many out there who are doing holy work in getting information out there, ensuring its accuracy, and helping shape the narrative in a way that is truly reflective of reality. And you can be, and you should, I believe, be a part of that process. And I encourage you to do so.
So I know personally, I have the J-Post app on my phone with the notifications on, and I would encourage everybody to do that. Just download the J-Post app and put the notifications on, and you'll see information that comes out. We'll ask one more because we have a few other guests waiting. Have you seen any link between Students for Justice in Palestine and Hamas?
There have been allegations in the past that all sorts of pro-Palestine organizations in the United States have links to the Muslim Brotherhood, which of course is the umbrella of Hamas and other Islamist movements in America. And there's certainly been overlap with certain individuals who are involved in those organizations and then were the founders of organizations like Students for Justice in Palestine. This, again, is very well documented. But even if there aren't direct material links, although I suspect there are, the ideological links are very apparent. When you have Students for Justice in Palestine marching through college campuses saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, they are parroting Hamas rhetoric. When they are cheering Hamas's massacre against Israeli civilians, when they are blaming Israel for the massacre of its own men, women, and children, they are simply parroting Hamas propaganda. I think it is absolutely true that there is an ideological presence for Hamas on college campuses across the United States. It sometimes manifests itself in the form of Students for Justice in Palestine, but exists in faculty corners as well. There have been administrations that have been mealy-mouthed in their condemnation of what's happened here and trying to draw this moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. It's abhorrent. And I think that it falls to us to ensure that we are playing a role in this. I'm quite encouraged by the fact that there are donors to major universities who are starting to withdraw their donations and say, we're not going to give to you anymore if we feel that your campus is not safe for Jewish students. The reality in which donors are giving to campuses in which their own grandchildren or children would not feel safe is preposterous. And it's, I think, quite encouraging that many donors over the past weeks have said, we're not going to stand for it anymore. So I hope we see more of that. I hope we see donors standing up and saying, we want these environments to be safe for our students. We want to be safe for people who support Israel. And I think that that's of tremendous importance at this time.
Thanks again, Avi, and I hope everyone follows J-Post and specifically you, and keep up the good work. I hope we can call on you again.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thanks, Avi. Next, we'll turn to Noah Zer, the Central Arava Regional Council Director of Resource Development. Noah, thank you so much for joining us. We know how hard the entire community of the Arava is working to absorb and host in most loving ways so many evacuees. So Noah, over to you.
Thank you. And I see so many familiar faces, and I'm so sorry that we have to meet on these circumstances. We've been working with JNF for so many years to increase the population of the Arava, and never in our wildest dream have we thought that in overnight, our 5,000 people community will absorb 2,200 people that are now living in the Arava. We increased our numbers by 45%. We are very proud to be a safe haven for our brothers and sisters who are fleeing the war. And the entire community has recruited itself for the efforts to make sure that these people will have a place where they can try to recover if there is something like that exists. When it started, when Black Sabbath happened, the first responders were the people of the community. They just cried out, come, and hundreds of people came. And people opened their homes. Our entire B&B industry, our tourism industry, right now there is 99% occupancy in all the Zimmers in the Arava. A lot of them you've stayed before with people who fled the war, not being compensated by the country, just, a call out, whoever wants refuge in the Arava, come. We set up a call center that matches owners of Zimmers and even, open rooms in houses and families who wants to be evacuated. So the challenge of, and I'm talking right now as a regional municipality, the challenge of addressing the needs of 45% more people with different needs than the people that are living in the Arava is a huge task. So the first thing was the people themselves kicking into action and opening their homes and their hearts and feeding people and doing the laundry and just caring for their immediate needs. But then after 2 days, we've realized that as a municipality, we have to be able to operate and to provide all the needs of the people that are now living in the Arava in parallel to the needs of the local community, where the schools were closed, the kindergarten was closed, people were being recruited to the army. The community here was also under a lot of stress. So the first thing we understood that we need to operate as our own little government. The government of Israel, let's say in the most delicate way, takes time to respond. And we need to only depend upon ourselves, caring for our people and the 2,200 people that are now joining the region. So we started setting up an operational system to care for the people. The first thing was food. You need to feed 2,200 people. You know, the little stores in the Ava, where even in our little grocery store, we're not used to having, in my community, we're 500 residents. All of a sudden, we have 150 more in the Moshav. The milk ran out in 2 days. The little things. You know, where do you buy things? We're very far away from the center, and the supply had to be thought of in a different way, and security had to be thought of in a different way. We needed to set up our own squad teams. We needed to rely on the JNF emergency response volunteers, and all the facilities that we have been building together with JNF for so many years. The medical center, the emergency response center, the aquatic center, the kindergartens, all of a sudden kick into action and even took on a different hat. If you'll see right now the emergency response center, you'll see that in the offices, there are the police and the rescue unit and the volunteers and Magen David Adom who are working to provide service to the people here. There's a 24/7 guard on all the communities, and people are here doing shifts because all the gates are closed and we are on a border, which we don't know if it will be hostile or not, and we need to protect the people and the 2,200 people who now has to rely on us for their safety. But on the other hand, the corridors, every inch, you see boxes of food, boxes of clothes, boxes of toys, boxes of washing machines, dryers, appliances, everything. So people can come in and take whatever they need because people fled their homes with their flip-flops and their pajamas. So an entire logistic operational system had to be formed from the ERC that goes down to the Moshavim. And now every Moshav has its own logistics center. And we are in touch. We have a headquarters in the regional council in touch with all the companies, the commercial companies in Israel. And every day there are trucks coming in with donation of bicycles, towels, toilet paper, and pampers. We gathered the needs of the community. We started organizing lists. Who are the people that came? How many people per family? What are their needs? How many kids? From what age? Because we need to set up a different municipality system to care for the people. And that's what we did. By the way, I think 3 days after the war, I got a phone call from Tali Tzur, the Chief Operation of Israeli officer. Noah, what do you need? I told her, Tali, we need to feed the people. The next day, I got a very, very substantial check. Go feed the people. Nothing. The day following, what do you need? I need medical applies. I need the medical equipment. 2,200 people more. We need to care for them. So every aspect of municipal life had to be doubled and had to be taken into consideration that there are different needs that now to be addressed. I had a conversation this week with Tali. We are setting up an educational system because the kids that are coming to the lab, there are 900 kids in the Arava right now. We need to give them kindergartens. We need to give them educational activities. We are setting up a school together with JNF. So the children here will have some sort of a daily routine life. We are going down to the Moshavim with teacher soldiers. So the kids will have activities. Everything that has to do with the municipal life, we are organizing as the headquarters, but the communities themselves are kicking in, and every community has its own set of volunteers that are working to provide people with their needs. Each Mushav has its own logistics center run by volunteers. They have their own educational committee, entertainment committee. Everything is being organized. The one thing that we have in our advantage is that we've always worked as communities, because that's what you do when you need to survive. So the communal form and the way we act is very cohesive, and everything is now being dealt with volunteers and also by the regional council. And I tell you, people here are not thinking about themselves. They are just, wanted to give shelter and help the people. and provide them with some sort of a normality. Right now, we're setting up a psychological operational system because people are here and they need psychological care, and our own therapists are dealing with 5,000 people. Amongst them are people that also have been personally suffering from the consequences of the ongoing war, and everything has to be built from scratch, but that's what we do. We are setting up now operational systems to all the needs of the communities, and actually we've adopted Eshkol Regional Council. We have the headquarters together with representative of Eshkol, and we're working together with them to understand what are their needs and how can we address them. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys, Jewish National Fund, and the operation here in Israel. Not only do I don't need to pick up the phone and call JNF, I'm getting phone calls every day. What do you need? How can we help? And debates are being carried out in the most professional way to make sure we are doing things in the most efficient way, according to the needs of the people. It's not enough to give the framework. You need to make sure it's suitable for what the people need. And we're doing fine tuning every day. And I have to tell you that in the past week, we are getting now requests from the north, from the Upper Galilee, from Nahariya, because Israel is now evacuating citizens from them. And we always hear about the hotels in the Dead Sea and the hotels in Eilat. Friends, you have to understand, people who live in Moshavim and communities, for them to live in a hotel, it's like a golden cage. They need the rural environment that the Arava can offer. They need the same way of life for them to try to breathe a little bit. To be stuck in a hotel room for somebody who used to live in a moshav, that's not what they need. And we know that, and we are ready and getting ready for the day that more and more people will come and think of solutions together with JNF. How can we absorb more people and provide them what we need in parallel to making sure that the border here is safe, that our volunteers are making sure that the communities are safe, that we are providing the needs for our own community. And you know the challenges of the Arava. The only thing that we have for our advantage is our geographic isolation that now, knock wood, provide us with some sort of safety. We're too far away to be considered a prime target. So we are taking on our responsibility. And one last word. Agriculture in Israel now is in a very, in a deep crisis. All the farmers in Gaza envelope don't have any workers. The foreign workers are now fleeing the country. And there is a real danger of a shortage in fruits and vegetables in the market, and not just fruits and vegetables, dairy farms and other products. We take a lot of pride in the fact that the community here is making sure that we keep on producing what we produce. We always said that we are the emergency food barn of Israel, and we fulfill that role proudly. And I hope that people in Israel will wake up and understand that food security is national security and has to be taken in the same respect, because agriculture is what protects the border. All the kibbutzim that were damaged are agricultural kibbutzim, and we hope that we'll be able to help our brothers and sisters that are farming as well. So again, thank you so much. And I hope you'll see the resilience of our community. It's just a small story of communities all over Israel that are now gathered together to make sure that people will have somewhere to go to. And I think that's that's how we're going to win the war, with love, with people taking care of people, with Am Yisrael accountable for one another, with us getting together on this call, caring for the people, and the social solidarity that is embedded within our genes.
So Noah, first of all, thank you for everything you're doing. A few people have asked, maybe you could just give the geographic location of what's considered the Arava.
So the Arava is halfway between Beersheba and Eilat, right along the Jordanian border. It's a regional council which encompasses 6% of the land, 7 communities, rural communities, mostly agricultural communities. Very far, it's about 2 hours drive from Beersheba, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, very remote, deep down in the desert. We always kid around that nobody wants to live in the Arava because the conditions here are very, very challenging. And this is the only time where we see it as an advantage, sadly.
Well, we've been with you many times in the Arava, and the JNF was with you before. They're with you now. They'll be with you forever. You mentioned how Tali and our group respond. Even we don't understand how Tali does it, but our group in Israel is responsive. I'm sure that you'll be in touch with them often, and we'll do everything we can to be next to you. And there's lots of chats coming in just to send you lots of love.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you soon. Alrighty, bye, Noah. So finally, we'll turn our briefing over to Russell Robinson, the Jewish National Fund USA Chief Executive Officer. And, I might note, maybe Russell will bring this up, but we're the only organization that's holding daily briefings on Israel. And the response we're getting is remarkable. These briefings are not necessarily easy to coordinate with everything else that is being coordinated on behalf of the land and people of Israel, but we feel it's important and we'll continue doing this. So Russell, let's turn it over to you.
Thank you, Saul, and thank you, Noah. I want to just, on the daily briefings, it deals with the professionals in Israel. It is not, and I think you've seen an unbelievable array of different people that have been speaking to us. But having a person like Noah come on, I just want you to understand the magnitude of the issue and the power of and spirit of the people. 5,000, take in almost 3,000. You just have to take wherever you're living, and imagine that over 50% your population grew from 10 days ago. With all that is happening, and I will just tell you as a shout out to the Arava, to the Eilot, to the Ramat HaNegevs, to the Mitzpeh Ramons that you heard yesterday from Tali. Their community also grew by almost double overnight. All of the issues from the garbage collection, they had just imagine when you put your garbage out tomorrow, tonight, whenever it is, and you're going to have your double pickup and you missed that one pickup and you now have double the garbage and you got to wait for the Thursday pickup. In the Arava, they have a garbage pickup, but now they have garbage for almost 70% more people that they did not have 10 days ago. I'm giving you those issues because all of that, on top of the education, on top of the feeding the people, on top of the crops and their businesses and their families and their education and the spirit of the people. Noah's on the call, so she could take it back for all of them. We make these calls and you talk to them, and there's not an oy vey in the conversation. It's all about what can we do more. And so it's really about all of us standing up and doing it. The volunteer operation that Hashemer is trying to run with mostly Israelis that are going and trying to be the ones who are working the farms. And we will be having some volunteer experiences. We have to be very organized with it because volunteers experiences is not just having people showing up. There's a lot of work to being a volunteer. There's a lot of preparation and there's a lot of responsibility that everybody has. So we're organizing it. You'll be hearing about it very soon, about opportunities. It's going to start small. It's going to be selective. And we're going to be out there. We're now working with people with disabilities, and we're organizing through our Lotem and our Adi Negevs, our special uniform, our Grofit. By the way, I'll do a shout out for Grofit. If you haven't seen it on social media, Grofit has been running therapeutic writing centers for the people in the southern area of the Arava to Eilat. Now they have even more that they didn't have 10 days ago. And not only that, they're opening up their therapeutic writing centers just as an enjoyment writing center for all the people there. Lone Soldiers, we're putting together a fund with Nefesh B'Nefesh. It's going to be a multi-million-dollar fund. I hope we use zero. The reality is there's almost 10,000 lone soldiers from the United States and other places that are in Israel that are today part of the call up. And I'm not talking about the people who made Aliyah. I'm talking about the lone soldiers. Once issues happen, injuries happen, parents want to get to Israel automatically. They may or may not be able to afford it. We are setting up a fund to make sure that no parent has a situation that they cannot come to Israel. We're working through Nefesh on that. We have added 70 people now to our Hod Hasharon campus in Mus. It'll start this coming week. But we're reaching out to our Mus alum that are in Israel, all of our teachers, to put on programming for them, because it's not just that we could give them a place to sleep and a place to eat. We have to also deal with their education and the children, and we're putting that together. But we're looking at how we come together with our people that are in Israel. You want to talk about what to do and where to go. We have an array of people that you have to be utilizing. I'm going to do a shout out for Betsy Fisher and the Gaza Envelope Task Force. You want the greatest speaker to talk about every issue. It's not Gaza Envelope, it's Israel Envelope now. The Israel Envelope. You call on our people to come speak. To parlor meetings, to your synagogue, call on them, call on your professional, ask them to bring one of our amazing people that can come and speak on it. We also have a Jewish National Fund Speakers Bureau. I'm going to have it put in the chat. You can look on there. There are speakers. You have organizations outside of Jewish National Fund and looking for speakers. You have to get the word out. It's what Avi said. We have to get the word out, and we have to get it is our responsibility. And I'll give that as a point of reflection, is that I had a Zoom call with a JNF Future group. By the way, it was one of the largest turnouts for the JNF Future. Not because of me, because of the situation. So there's something happening out there that our unity, that I will tell you, people questioned 3 weeks ago. And what I am telling you is what's happening today is that people are coming out and are wanting to come and be part of our tent and be part of our conversation. And this JNF Future person said to me, what do I do about posting online? I did it for the first time ever that I posted something about Israel or Jewish on my social network. And I was attacked nonstop. And I said, well, welcome to the club. It's a terrible club to have to be a member of, but it's a great club. So I am telling each and every one of you, if it's Jewish National Fund, if it's the Jerusalem Post, if it's the Jewish National Fund, if it's getting people to join these calls, post online and post the stories. And it's not just the stories about them. Matter of fact, I would ask you, stop posting the stories about them. Post a story about Noah Zer and what we're doing in the Arava. Post a story about what our Macomb communities are doing by helping entertaining the children and helping the families. Post the stories about the spirit, the beauty of the people of Israel and the Jewish people and the work that the Jewish National Fund is doing. Post a story about the Lauder Employment Center that is delivering packages all throughout Israel, and we set it up as a distribution center. Post the stories about our history, being part of the land and people of Israel. And for those that I saw in the chat are looking, we're going to be starting a series with our Mus educators, our Israel educators, to come online, that you're going to be able to join and learn about our 4,000-year history from the land of Israel, from the Jewish people and our connection. And you should know that. And even in the history of the people who lived in the Israel envelope. The first kibbutzim was established in 1943. I want you to hear the numbers, 1943, and it was established on land bought by the Jewish National Fund. And that story of those people who moved to the Israel envelope is truly the story of our Zionist world. So post it and talk about it. ask people to give and contribute and be part, because the pen is the power that you have right now to make a difference. Our campaign has hit 21 million with 12,500 brand new contributors to our campaign. 12,500 brand new contributors to our campaign. And we are working every day on what is happening in Israel today. But I'm telling you, we are also working on the day after. We are already putting our plans in writing with details, working with the government, working with organizations, working throughout with the kibbutzim and moshavim for the day after, that we can have that reveal moment, that they could go back home and rebuild their lives and their homes, to rebuild what they had and to be able to attract other people to live there. And for our campaign, starting today through next Thursday, we have a new $1 million match that will become from generous contributors, our partners in Denver, Colorado, Bob Lemke, Toby Mower, and the Shauna Glassman Foundation. So all gifts that are made today through next Thursday are matched by these wonderful people. So go out and do. Go out and do. Thank you, Saul.
So thank you, Russell. Thank you to all our speakers. Tomorrow, Friday, October 27th, please join us at 12 p.m. Eastern for our Prayers for Israel program, which we do every Friday. It's a time for reflection and unity. We'll be back with our daily briefings on Monday, October 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And our speakers next week are going to include General Doron Amud, Chairman of the Jewish Agency, and U.S. Representative Richie Torres. We'll hear from JNF USA affiliates in the Eliot region and from Adi Negev. As you know, the needs in Israel keep growing every day. Housing, meals, education, after-school activities. These basic necessities are needed daily, as over 250,000 people have been evacuated from the north and the south. We urge you to give and encourage others to join you in your generous support of the land and people of Israel. Every dollar goes directly to the Israelis, our family, and to the areas that are in greatest need. Visit jnf.org/support Israel. And don't forget, you can send care packages while supporting local businesses in northern Israel by visiting jnf.org/shopping. With that, I'll sign off, reminding you to join our Prayers for Israel program tomorrow, and our daily briefing will be back on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you for joining us. I'm Israel Chai.